Hello everybody, it's Coach Rouser here. So in this video we will go ahead and discuss how to solve multi-step equations and single step. Now, the difference between single and multi-step equations is that when you're solving for x, ideally in the single step equation you don't have to move many values, but in the multi-step equation you do. So an example of single step equation is something like this one right here, 2x equals 10, and then the 2x equals 20 will be an easy one. Now, when you're dealing with multi-step equations, it's talking about more so the multiple steps you have to go ahead and take to find the value of x, kind of like these and so forth. So just name a few. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the single step equations. So when we solve for these, if you notice in all my problems, the x is what's highlighted. You will always have to highlight or circle what you're trying to isolate in this case. So if we're trying to look for the single step equation, first thing you do, go ahead and draw the river. When you draw the river, you want to go ahead and just isolate that x. So whatever's in front of it, you want to go ahead and divide by it. So 2 times x, which is equal to 10. I want to go ahead and divide by 2 on both sides. So x is equal to 5 in this case. And so there you go. That's your final answer for this one. If you go down here, and we go ahead and check this one out, we solve this one. You draw your river, divide by 2, and then x is equal to 10 in this case. So x is equal to 10. So hopefully that one wasn't that bad. So the single step equations are actually pretty easy. You just have to be careful where you see them at. Now, the next ones, we have multi-step equations. You're going to do the same thing. Draw the river, and then you're going to move the values of that you have to work with. Now, I highlighted the x already, so I'm going to go ahead and take the opposite of positive 10, which is negative 10, on both sides. This goes away. 2x is equal to 20. Now it becomes a single step equation, and then x equals to 10. So there you go. So it's pretty much how you do it. This is pretty much the process that you do. So isolate your x, no, draw the river, isolate your x, and then remove the values that you need. Okay? Alrighty, so next one. Let's see, down here. So what we're going to do is that we're going to draw the river, and then now we're going to go and solve for x. So minus 1 on both sides, so do the opposite of the positive 1. And now you have 3x is equal to 7. Divide by 3 on both sides, and then x is equal to 7 over 3. Sometimes you have a fraction, and sometimes the fraction may be like a decimal, but in this case I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. Now, other part, and this is just a big warning, okay? Warning, is that let's say we had this problem. 2x plus 10 equals to 12. Ideally, if you do this, minus 10, minus 10, minus 10 on everything, and then you know that this is the river. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot repeat the value underneath an x. And the reason for that is because we're only applying it to real values. And then, so 10 and 12 are real values. Now this x, think of it as an x friend. Obviously, you don't mix your x friends with your real friends. So you want to go ahead and have them in the same spot. Now, if you go ahead and do that, then now you'll have this scenario where you have 2 divided by 2, and then x equals 1. Okay, so just be careful when you do those, so you see them. Okay, so giving you a heed warning when you see that process done, or anybody else do this in general. This does not work. Okay, we don't want to go ahead and do that. Okay, so just be very careful when you're solving these. Now the other part I will warn you about is that let's say we have 3x equals to 3x minus 6 is equal to 10. If you do this, where you minus 10 on both sides, minus 10, and then this goes away. Now, what happens here, you'll have this, but this is not going to help you solve for x for now. Because what we want you to do is that we want you to isolate the x by itself. Get this by itself. Here you have it combined with that, but we don't want that. So what I would recommend is that you want to move this positive 6 across the river and then you'll have your 3x equals 16, and then you can go ahead and solve for whatever you need to here. Okay? So just be careful when you do that step, because I know some of you will do it. So minus 10, if you do this, and then it becomes negative 16 equals 3x. Now you can't solve for x because there's no value here. Well, actually, there's actually 0. But you can't solve it, and you're doing over here. You divide by 3, x equals whatever number you come up with. Be careful that this is not the process that we want to work with. Okay? So be mindful of it. Okay, so let's keep going. Another example. So go ahead and create the river. Add 10 on both sides. 2x equals to 40. 40 divided by 2, x equals to 20. And so there you go. Okay? That's the final answer for this one. So make the river, isolate the x, and then move your values. So make the river, isolate the x, go. And then go ahead and solve for x. So this is going to be some sort of value. I'll just leave it as a fraction for now, okay? Just for the time being. Okay? So let's keep going. Next one. Make the river. And then I want you to go and solve for this. Now, sometimes the x might be on the right side or on the left side. So, or maybe both. So, but what I would suggest is that you look for the highest value and then move these over here. Okay? These as in the x's. So minus 2x minus 2x. So it'll be negative 2 is equal to 6x. And then now you could just treat it as regular x equals negative 1/3. From there. Okay? So just be mindful of it, that it can be on the left side or the right side, and look for the largest value. Here's another one. So as I'm trying to figure this one out, make the river and decide where you want to move first. I'm going to move my x values first because that's going to be the ones that are most important to me. So I know this is the highest value, so I'm going to move this over here. So now I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. So it'll be minus 2 is equal to 3 minus 2 gives you 1x plus 8. Next step is I'm going to subtract 8 on both sides. So x equals to negative 10. So there you go. Okay? So you should always box your final answer, so it's very clear on where you're doing your work. So just make sure you're on top of that too. Okay, so overall, those are some of the steps. Now, what I added here then are a little bit of extra problems that you might run into. So you may have to run into where you have a fraction involved. Now, we have a fraction, don't necessarily freak out. Just make sure that you're able to go ahead and put an imaginary 1 underneath the number that's by itself and not necessarily a fraction. And that kind of turns into a fraction. So now, if you're from middle school, you can probably think about butterfly multiplication or cross multiplication or cross product. So 8 times 1 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4x. So what I just did here, I put 2 times 2x. And then I did 8 times 1. And then when you go ahead and divide them, x equals to 2. Okay, so just giving you a heads up here. Same idea here. So we're going to go ahead and do our 2x over 4. So we're going to go ahead and make this into a fraction. And so we're going to cross multiply now. So 4 times 3 gives you 12. 1 times 2x gives you 2x. So now, ideally, you have 4 times 3 here. And then you have 1 times 2x here. And then you have x equals to 6 in this case. Okay? So that's one problem. Now the other one here. Okay, if you notice this is a little bit different, you got 2 x's involved. So I want you to be careful with this. Now, make it into your, put it over 1. And this makes it into like a proportion. So or like a fraction we can work with. Now, we can cross product. So now you have 3 times 3x times x, so it'll be 3x times x is equal to 27. So what we're going to do, x times x becomes x squared. So x times x equals to x 1 plus 1. So I'm just throwing this out here just so you don't get confused. X 4. Okay? All we're doing is just adding the exponents together. From here, you can go ahead and notice that this is going to be 3 is equal to 27. Divide by 3 on both sides. X squared is equal to 9. Square root it, and then x equals to 3. Okay? I usually wait to square root it at the very end, so just be careful when you're trying to solve these. It's to make it a little bit neater. So there you go. Okay? So that's pretty much how you go about it. Multi-step equations. Just be aware that sometimes they might be different. You just got to be able to adjust to every single one of them. Okay? All right, tune into the next video.